All right, so this is the equipment we're going to be using for our titration experiment. And if you're watching this video, you missed this experiment while it was set up in class. So I'm going to be going through this process for you, but I am still going to ask that you kind of follow along. I've posted a virtual copy of these instructions on Canvas so that you can kind of understand what I'm doing and why. I just have these here to help me stay on track. And I am going to be asking that you take all of the measurements. I'm going to be recording them and actually doing the experiment, but I'm going to ask you to actually record your own interpretation of these measurements that I've been taking. So our first step is to use this clean flask. I did actually already clean that out, dry it off. And I am going to pour this 10-ish milliliters of hydrochloric acid, and this is 0.500 molar acid, into our flask. But before I do that, I want us to take a very careful measurement of its volume. And I want to point out here that the actual bottom of the meniscus, the curve of this acid, goes below the 10 line. Now, it isn't important that it's exactly 10, but it is important that we get this exact measurement recorded. So this is a little bit less than 10 milliliters. You'll notice that that bottom of the meniscus doesn't quite touch that one line down. So I'm going to call this 9.87. Personally, in my opinion. If you would like to do a little bit more than that, you have your own interpretation of that there. But keep in mind, each of these little itty bitty lines between the 9 and the 10 represent 0.2 milliliters. So I don't think it's quite down to 0.8, but it's definitely not at 10. So somewhere like 9.87, 9.9-ish. is what I would write down for that volume. Now I'm going to pour this into our flask. And with those 10 milliliters of acid, we're going to add 4 drops of phenolphthalein. This is our indicator. This is going to be what changes color to tell us when to stop. And then I have pre-measured out 30 milliliters of water. So I can set that down, get you a better look at that. Once again, it's a little bit less than 30, but this water is just approximate. Didn't have to be perfectly exact. And swirl it a little bit to get it all mixed. And now I have already filled the burette up as well. And once again, this is not exactly at 0, 0. This is between the 0 and the 1. Keep in mind that with burettes, we always record straight from that burette. We do not do any subtraction. These are made to measure how much has been dispensed. So right now, that's looking, I'm straight on, holding this a little bit more steady, even without that paper. Yeah, there, now we're in focus. See how I'm just a little bit past that second line down? I'm going to call this 0.21, because each of those lines, because there's 10 lines between 0 and 1, is 1/10. So we're just a little bit past 2 lines down. So that's the last of these measurements that I'm going to be telling you what I think of them. I want you to make the rest of the burette measurements that we're going to be observing on your own. Okay, now I have that same flask that you just saw underneath the same burette that we just saw, and I'm going to begin the titration. And I'm going to be using this valve here in order to control the speed at which the base is dropping into our acid. And what I want you to watch and see is that as we add this base in, you're going to see kind of a splash of pink. That's that indicator showing us we've got a base. But you notice it disappeared very quickly. So that base reacted with the acid that we still have in the flask, and it's gone away. Now we have no more base in there, we can tell, because there's no more pink. So I'm going to keep adding base from this burette while swirling this to keep it mixing and reacting until we actually see that pink color persist for 20 to 30 seconds, because what that tells us is that there's still base left in the flask, and the only time there's going to be a little bit of base left in the flask is when all the acid is gone. That's what we call the equivalence point. When all the acid has reacted away with all the base, when the amount of acid and base are equal, then we're neutral. And that's when this is going to start turning slightly pink. And even one drop more base, once we're past neutral, one more drop is going to mean that all we've got is base there, so it will stay pink. Now, keep in mind, this is going to turn that bright pink color, but we're hoping to end at a pretty light pink color so that we're just barely at or just barely past the equivalence point. We don't want to go sailing past it, because if I wanted pink, I could make it pink. I dump the whole burette in. It will be very, very dark pink. But the idea of this titration is to do a carefully controlled experiment to get exactly at that equivalence point, right at that end point. So I'm going to do my best I can with this. I'm going to try not to block your view. I do have to swirl as I add that chemical. So you can kind of see that spot of pink is getting bigger and bigger, but it's not really taking over the whole solution yet. That means that the acid is still kind of winning and neutralizing it. Now, as it's getting bigger, I am going to kind of slow that down a little bit so that I don't add too much, because I don't want to go past that end point. So I've got it down to kind of drops now, and it's still getting more and more pink. So I just stopped it, no more drops, letting it sit, make sure all the pink goes away, which it did, so I can start putting in drops. But I might go ahead and just do kind of even slower drops. Yep. 2, 3. So we're almost there. It's sticking around for about 3 seconds. I'm going to add one more drop and swirl. Pink spot. Nope, it's still going away. Another drop. Looks like I got a second drop there. Okay, it's still going away as we mix it. Yeah, we are so close. Eventually, just that one drop is going to make this whole thing turn pink. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, not quite. Spilled a little bit down the side. I want to make sure it all gets into that reaction there. Very careful. I want you to get good results. I don't want any mistakes to be because of me, at least. Color's sticking around for longer and longer. Yeah, that was only like 10 seconds. We're getting there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. We're getting close to 20 seconds, but it's not quite pink anymore. We didn't make it to that 20 to 30 seconds. So this is probably going to be it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14. Oh, this is also, it's barely pink. Let's see. Yeah, that is definitely done. We're in that solid 20 to 30 second mark, and it is still definitely pink. So that is done for us, and I'm going to go ahead and show you the burette again. Let's see, maybe putting this white paper behind it will help us. Focusing also helps. So the only help I'm going to give you here, there we go, is reminding you that because that liquid level is between the 19 and the 20, the number you write down should be between 19 and 20. But do your best to interpret what that number is. Make sure you're recording that to the nearest 2 decimal places. So here I have set up our second trial. I want you to record these numbers to the best of your ability. And here is the acid that I'm about to pour into that flask. It's not as helpful with the white background. And that should be all the information you need to do your second trial.